All right. Well, let me get started then with everyone. Thank you so much again for everyone joining us today. We're thrilled that you're spending an hour with us. My name is Sue Atkins. I am the Associate Director of Employer Relations at Tufts University, and I work in the Career Center. We're having this session to rock your LinkedIn profile for alumni and current students, graduate and undergrad. So we're glad you could all join us today. Just some housekeeping. We will be recording this session, and we will have the session available on the Tufts Career Center YouTube channel. So we will be sharing that with all of you following the session. In addition, we will have handouts that are also already available on our Handshake page for this event, but we will send those out to all of you as well, so you can take notes or not, up to you. And we are going to take questions in the chat. We will do our best to answer those questions throughout the session. So I'll be monitoring the chat box with your questions. And we will have time, about 10 minutes at the end of the session, to respond to your questions as well. So we will do our best to follow up with you throughout the session. But without further ado, I would love to introduce our two guests that are joining us today. Lori Burris, who is a teacher right now in graduate design at the USC Roski School of Art and Design, and also a consultant with LinkedIn Learning. Currently, she's been doing that since 2009 and been working with that team over at LinkedIn. And Elise Stewart, who is a fellow Jumbo, go Jumbos, class of 2014, who's joining us. She's currently higher education account director for LinkedIn based in New York, and she'll be sharing a lot more about her story of how she got to LinkedIn, which is fabulous, with all of you. And she's also a volunteer and mentor to a variety of organizations in the New York City area. So she continues her giving back in her local community, which we love to hear. But I would love to turn it over to our guest speakers for us today. Elise, I will have you start and go over the agenda for all of us. And thanks for joining us today. We're so thrilled to have you.
Yes, thank you for having both of us. We're really excited to speak to you all today. I especially, as Sue mentioned, am a fellow Jumbo. So I don't know if you had a chance to see on the first slide or if you watched the recording, but my email address is on there. You can also feel free to connect with me after this session. I just ask that if you send me a connection request, just write that you joined this session so that I know where it's coming from. But I'm always happy to help out fellow Jumbos. Today, we will be talking through several items. First, creating or updating your LinkedIn profile, building your professional brand. We'll talk a little bit about my journey from Tufts to where I am today. We will talk about how to grow your network, how to show off the skills that you have, and then we'll have Q&A and resources. So if you have questions, you can drop them in the chat and they will be monitored throughout the duration of the presentation. So first, create a LinkedIn profile. If you don't have one, it's definitely time to make one. And if you do have one already, then we can talk through updating that. Great. So how does LinkedIn create value for you? Can we go next slide? So our vision at LinkedIn is to create economic opportunity for every member of the global workforce. So that's whether you are a professional, whether you are a student, whatever type of worker you are, it is all about us connecting you to economic and professional opportunity. Whether it's getting a job, building your professional identity, or learning a skill, LinkedIn is an ecosystem that has powerful data, tools, and insights to help connect you to opportunity. Half of all US adults with college degrees use LinkedIn, and we actually are a global force. So we are only growing in other markets as well. I know Tufts may have a large community of people that are interested in working abroad and translating their skills abroad as well. And so that's also an area that we can help.
So I'll take it from here, and I'm going to talk a little bit about the nitty-gritty of making your LinkedIn profile. I'm so happy to be here, and thank you, Tufts, for having us. Your LinkedIn profile is your story. It helps you gain inbound attention. It's how people find you on the network. You'll get your notice and your recognition there. And now we're going to discuss how to go about that. Before you start, orient yourself to the profile page. Everybody's profile page will look different, and you'll see it in edit mode. I can't see it in edit mode, only you can. There's something called the creator mode, and that's a new feature. It switches it to followers rather than connections. And I would suggest as students looking for jobs that you do not go to creator mode. It's really for like CEOs of a company or what we call influencers, things like that. But there are a lot of things that you can do in creator mode that are a little bit different, which are live events and newsletters. The Manage My Network is where you can find all your data, who you're connected to, what groups you belong to, what events you've attended, what pages you've looked at. So if ever you want to see that history, it's right there. And Salary Insights, nobody ever goes here, but I love it. You can put in any job and see what the current average salary for that job is, what it is for the entry level and the upper end of it. And that's really, really helpful when you're searching for jobs. And then finally, if you save things, you see a post you like, you see an article, that's where all your saved things will be. It's really important that you put your own public and profile in your own separate URL. You can change it from numbers to a name that people can remember. And the great news is if you are trying to look for jobs in 2 different countries, I have a lot of international students at USC, they can have a Chinese profile as well as an American profile. So this is really helpful if you're applying to companies in global offices. You want to be sure to put open to work and tell them that you're looking for a job or looking for an internship. If you ever can't find something, they're all going to be there. We're going to be talking about all these different sections today. And then finally, I tell everyone, start by sharing your profile, and LinkedIn will automatically make a stab in Microsoft Word at creating your resume. And from there, you can go and edit it and make it beautiful and do all those things. But it's a really fast way to get up and started with your resume. So as I said, get that button up there. This is the time of year if you're looking for internships or summer jobs or part-time contract work, get that up there saying that you're open to work. This is an easy way for recruiters to find you. It shows up in their recruiter searches. And I've talked about having that custom URL, but there's another thing that there's always the ability to turn off and on your security and your privacy, and you control that, not LinkedIn, but you. When you're looking for a job, I suggest keeping it all up public unless there's a personal reason that you don't want someone to find you on the LinkedIn network. And then finally, you can create a public badge, which I call the digital calling card. So let's get started. You want to start with the photo. It's super, super important. It's your professional story. Make sure that you select a LinkedIn profile photo that really represents you. It doesn't need to be you on a ski slope 100 feet from the camera. It should be right there in that little square so that we can see your face front and center. It doesn't have to be perfect, but it should be very clear and easy to see. And if you want to know more about it, when you actually add that photo, we have a lot of filters that you can use to clean up that photo and to make it look better. And it's right there. So one of the hot tips I'll give you is wherever you see a pencil, that means that you can edit something. So if you're following along and looking at your profile as I'm talking, just know that that's where you can edit. Adding your industry is also really important. It's how others will find you. And it's the first thing that recruiters and people looking for jobs, looking to hire people look for. You will find, and they'll find you in your professional network. So be sure you put a very clear job description that you're trying to aspire to. In addition, adding your industry will give you up to 9 times more profile views, and members with industry information are discovered up to 38 times more in recruiter searches. It's simple. Just click that pencil at the top of your photo where your headshot and name are and scroll down to edit or add your industry. Think of your summary as an elevator pitch. Don't do bullets. It should be like a story This difference between a resume and the profile is it's really your personal and professional story. And you want to make it story-like. It should include an introduction to you, why you're doing what you're doing, highlight what you're doing right now, and what you aspire to do in the next 1 to 3 years. Keep it short and sweet. There's no need to list all your career accomplishments. You're going to have lots of places below in the profile to do that. And feel free to highlight your unique talents. What makes you different, differentiate, and how do you want to contribute to the industry you're trying to get a job in? Did you know adding a summary of 40 words or more makes your profile more likely to turn up in a future employee search? Again, going back to those recruiter algorithms, that industry title and this summary is where they start. And the third most important thing are your skills. Experience is your opportunity to tell your professional story and talk about your accomplishments within each of the roles that you've had: internships, fellowships, part-time experiences, pro bono, capstone projects. It's a great way to showcase your experience. Write it in short paragraphs rather than bullets. Keep it story-like. You can use a couple of bullet points here and there, but the majority should read like a story, your story. If you've worked at a startup company or a smaller role in a smaller company or a role that's not well known, then give a brief introduction to the company and be more explicit in describing what your role was. And lastly, it's great to talk about what you did in your role. Explain your impact. By doing this, we were 2 times more likely to do this. Or by helping out my team, we saw productivity rise like that. Be sure that you show what your work is doing to increase the impact of your presence at that job.
And Lori, do you mind if I add just one item
Yeah.
here? So when I know we have students and alumni on the chat and on the group today, obviously when you're a student, right, you may feel that you have less work experience. But for example, I was in Emerging Black Leaders. I was in the Leonard Carmichael Society, which is obviously a large volunteer organization at Tufts. I was in the Tufts Pre-Medical Society, and I had a leadership position there. So those are different types of things as well that you can list out as experience. If you've taken on a leadership role or if you are doing volunteer work, those skills are translatable as work experience. So obviously, coming right out of school, you're not going to have a ton of work experience, but you will have had experiences that can easily be translated into work and getting a job.
Yeah, those 2 special sections are called accomplishments and volunteer work. So recruiters look at accomplishments and volunteer work almost as the same as if it's work experience. So rich media, we see the web before we read the web. Really, this is something you can do here, is add images in the featured section. Put a capstone project in there. Put a picture of your website. Put a movie. Record yourself and put a video up about yourself. It could be a video, a presentation, a PDF, anything that visually enhances your profile and makes it more dynamic. And you're trying to personalize it. This is a way someone can really get you. They see your face. They see those images, they get that sense of who you are. Keep in mind, this doesn't have to be content you own. For example, if you have a group project or a capstone project, you can use them in your profile, especially in your experience section. Just be clear to define what your role is and what your impact was in that project.
Lori, a couple of questions have come in. I wanted to just jump in for a second. And one is, for the experience, do you need to enter years of experience like your resume? Is that something that you would say?
Yeah. Yes, you would. If you click on that pencil, it'll tell you what the company is. You can add the company's logo there, and it will ask you the range of time that you spent at that job. Then it will ask you to define kind of your role and the things that you explicitly did. And then again, another spot to put pictures. So if you worked on a product design or you wrote a paper or did a white paper, you can add it right there. You may have things in multiple places on your profile. It's okay. Just be sure that you put as much as you can in each of those sections, because as they look at that, they're going to want a very clear and explicit thing. Just saying, for instance, I'm in design. Just saying I was a graphic designer is not as valuable as saying, I did UX research on the product design that came out in the spring collection. It's really important to define that. You don't have much room on your resume, but you've got plenty of room in your LinkedIn profile. Think of it as a portfolio of your career development. So volunteer experience. All of you have done some volunteer experience. If you've gone to Tufts, I'm sure you've done a course where you worked with a community-based organization or another business, or worked on a project in teams that worked towards a company goal. Adding volunteer experience is a great way to round out what you may be lacking in professional experience. Make sure you add your volunteer experience and give a quick 1 to 2 sentence description of what you did for that specific organization. Did you know that almost half of all hiring managers say they view volunteer experience as equivalent to formal work experience? It's an important part of your professional identity, and it's one of the most overlooked ones by college students, and often even by alums. When I ask, did you put anything under volunteer? They say no. And then when I ask them, did they do work for a community-based organization or a nonprofit? They always say, yeah, I did. So be sure that you think about all of the things that you've done. It's a more holistic 360 view of yourself. Add skills to showcase what you're great at. Adding at least 5 or more skills can get you up to 17 times more profile views. Professionals, aka recruiters, commonly search key skills first. When you're adding your skills, LinkedIn will give you those keywords. Get in the habit of not creating your own words for skills, but using our taxonomy, the skills suggested that typically recruiters will look for. It's another great way to be found by your network. And LinkedIn certificates posted on your profile bump up you to the top of that interview list. So if you take a course or complete a learning path in LinkedIn, it actually pushes your skills up higher in promotion. Remember, you are in full control of your skills. You choose what order they get displayed in and who endorses you for them. Put them in the order of importance to the job you're trying to get. Your top 3 are very important to list, and be sure you add interpersonal ones. Recommendations are a great way for you to build your professional credibility. If you don't already have them, request a recommendation from a colleague, teacher, or mentor. My own 2 children went to Princeton and Northwestern, and neither of them got a letter of recommendation or a recommendation from a professor. That's an easy ask at Tufts. You can all do that. There's also somebody that you've worked with closely who can vouch for your character and vouch for your work ethic. What's great about a recommendation on LinkedIn is it doesn't have to be that more formal letter of recommendation that you get when you're applying for a job. It's just an endorsement of how they knew you in what particular experience. There's a couple of things you need to keep in mind. Customize your request. Make sure you let the person know what you want to be recommended for specifically: a project, an initiative, character, ethics. You cannot ask for a recommendation unless you're connected to that person on LinkedIn. Once you're connected, then message them. When you make the request, especially when asking senior leaders, sometimes write a first pass to send to them. This is super helpful. It saves them time and it gives them something to work with and to remind them of how they're connected to you. And choose people you have worked with closely and who can provide specific examples of how your strengths, skills, and experience show up. And then finally, don't forget about location, education, publications, accomplishments. Make sure you add or update your profile as things change. It's a living document. This location will help you discover opportunities and connections in your area. Education is important to add, and you can choose where in your profile it gets displayed. There are little hamburger logos that allow you to move things and adjust the order that you see things in your profile. And if you have any publications, if you do have a senior project, a thesis, add those into your accomplishment section. And this is a great place to feature all that great work. Have you received an industry honor? Are you on the dean's list? Have you gotten a scholarship? All those great things that Elise was talking about. These are types of things that you want to add to the accomplishment section. So now I'm going to turn it over to Elise to talk to us about how to do personal branding on LinkedIn.
Lori, do you have a little bit of time to take a few questions that have come in so far?
I think we should move along, and then I'll take those questions at the end so that we
Okay.
have a chance to get through branding and networking.
Sure.
Awesome. So once you've published content, people can follow and connect with you to stay on top of what you say and what you are posting on LinkedIn. And you want to keep in mind that what you're posting becomes a part of your profile. It gets shared with your network, and it reaches the largest group of professionals. So right now, I believe we have about 765 million LinkedIn members that can be reached by your posts. The first way to share your perspective is quick and high touch through status updates. So kind of similarly to other social media platforms, you can post a status update that will be seen in the news feed by your connections, and can also be seen more broadly virally if your connections are liking and sharing. The second way is your opportunity to explore a topic in more detail through publishing. So what is the difference? Sharing updates is a way for you to quickly share your knowledge, perspective, and insight on things that you care about. Publishing is a way for you to explore a topic by writing a long form post. So just to give you an example, I might post a status update about, something that my team did at work, something that I did at work, something that I want to share with my network. But after my first year at LinkedIn, I've been at LinkedIn for about 6 years now, I wrote an article called Reflecting on My First Year at LinkedIn. And that was a longer conversation that I was having about what I had learned. So best practices for sharing updates. 1, share in your authentic voice. 2, post frequently. 3, start a conversation or share your point of view. 4, include rich media to increase engagement. So those links and videos and examples of work that Lori was mentioning. 5, create an opportunity for reciprocity. And 6, write a long form post. So don't just stick to status updates, actually position yourself as a thought leader by posting longer articles. And you can track your progress. So simply by clicking the View Stats button within your published article, you can pull up analytics that will help you target the professionals who will benefit most from your perspective and expertise. So you can imagine if you worked on, let's say, some type of mechanical engineering project, you want to get that in front of people who are in that field in order to help yourself get a job opportunity. You can also see how your content is resonating with your professional community. So who's reading it, who's clicking on it. It will oftentimes be part of mostly people in your immediate network, but it will reach further than that as well. So the power of posts. Posts help you to be heard, create authentic stories, and share with other professionals and connections in hiring companies as well. You can use hashtags to be surfaced as more relevant. You can tag people in them. You can tag businesses in them. And I see the question in the chat about what is the difference between a business and a personal LinkedIn profile. We'll get to that at the end, but just note that you can tag either a person or a business in your update. So what are some benefits of connecting with your targeted audience? First and foremost, you can promote your brand or services that you offer. You can introduce your brand or services that you offer, describe the benefits of connecting with you or working with you to your followers, and share links that lead to your website, work, or profile. 2, you can find birds of a feather easily. So when you make a post, view LinkedIn profiles of potential persons to work and network with and find the best matches for your core skills and career. You can share helpful content. So sharing content that's useful to your target audience, like blog posts to educate users about your services or products, or even links from third parties that you just found helpful, will help lead them through the stages of a user journey and turn people who are maybe potential connections or potential commenters into followers and build your network. You'll also increase your searchability. In order to network effectively, you need to be able to be found. So adding links to your posts help improve your ranking in the search engine results through search engine optimization. Connect with your target audience. So connect with their companies or follow them. In your case, universities and colleges or professionals with related career goals and interests. So posts, comments, messages, sponsored posts, LinkedIn and InMail. LinkedIn is the #1 business-to-business channel that makes up more than 50% of social traffic. in business to business blogs, and LinkedIn generates about 3 times more conversations than Twitter or Facebook. And it's also generally a more trusted site. So just in the day and times that we're living in today, obviously there can be a lot of information on other platforms. LinkedIn tends to be a platform where people go to and they feel that they can trust what they're reading. And lastly, you are taking time to get all these elements in place to ensure that your LinkedIn profile sends out the right message and provides value for your social media marketing efforts. So now I can talk a little bit to you about what my experience was coming to LinkedIn. So I graduated from Tufts in 2014, as Sue mentioned, and I was very eager to, well, actually, originally I wanted to be a doctor, but as a lot of you on this call may or may not relate to, but I was feeling a little tired, I was feeling a little burnt out, and I realized I actually just really wanted to help people and I wanted to learn. And so I started out in the startup world, but eventually I decided I wanted to work at a larger tech company where I could have more impact. And so I went on LinkedIn and I reached out to 17 alums of Tufts who worked at LinkedIn at the time. I got 15 responses. And then I ultimately ended up getting 7 or 8 referrals into the company, which drastically cut down the time that it took for me to get my position. Normally from, LinkedIn gets over 1 million applications a year. And from the time that it takes to apply to the time it takes to interview and get the job is usually anywhere from 3 to 6 months. And for me, that was cut down to 3 to 6 weeks. So reach out to people, reach out to me, and give people that clear ask that Laurie mentioned. So help someone understand how they can help you, help them understand what it is that you're interested in, take informational interviews. And oftentimes, alumni affiliation is one of the strongest things that people feel. I want to help people just because I know that they're also a jumbo, and people wanted to help me just because they knew that I was a jumbo. So lean on that. Don't be shy. Reach out to people even if you don't know them. And odds are, I have found the Tufts network especially to be incredibly welcoming and incredibly willing to help and assist people who are looking for a new role.
So let's talk about growing your network. There's just so many ways. Oops, sorry, didn't do the share part. So let's talk about growing your network. It's so super, super important. After skills, I think network is the most important thing. It's about partnerships, it's collaboration, but it's between the different people, different businesses. It's how you're going to be referred. It's a great way. And our data and research shows that it will clarify and reveal trends and economic indicators. We say it all the time at LinkedIn, we're in it together. Nobody gets a job all by themselves, all sitting in their room, watching their laptop. It's about who you know and the connections that you and the relationships that you form. So your professional brand is going to be the key to all these new opportunities. You're going to build your brand, build that profile, and set yourself up for success. It gives you credibility, it'll drive referrals, and it will attract new people to look at you and to join your network. There are a few networking strategies that really work. You want to make that profile look as great as you can. You want to make it stand out. This is your personal brand, not the company brand. It's not Tufts brand. It's all about you. Connect with people and interact. Don't just add people, but actually have these conversations through posts and through different ways that you can connect on LinkedIn. And keep posting. If you're actively looking for an internship or job right now, I recommend posting 3 times a week. You're looking at those job availabilities every day. I'm only asking you to take 5 minutes a day, 3 times a week, and make a post. It's way more likely that you'll be discovered by a recruiter or a company looking to hire. Join LinkedIn groups. Groups are those birds of a feather. I'll talk a little bit about them, and follow your companies and heroes that you want to hear about. If you're a mechanical engineer looking to get a job with Amazon, then follow Amazon or follow Google. Follow the companies that you're most interested in knowing what they're doing, what they're all about. To search for groups by name or keyword, you would enter a keyword or group name in the search bar that always appears at the top of the LinkedIn page. And then you would go to the second bar and select groups from the dropdown. To browse for groups recommended for you by LinkedIn, click on My Network in the top right of your LinkedIn homepage and select Groups from the menu that appears. Scroll down to the bottom of the page and click Search. So this is an example of the groups that I am currently a member of or that I've created. You can always create your own group. I'm sure Tufts has a number of their own groups that they've created on LinkedIn. And because I'm involved in education and teaching pedagogy, and I also am involved with design thinking, you can see how my groups are there. But I also have a couple of entrepreneurship groups in there, which is the ASU GSV Summit, which is startup companies for education technology. And then once you get those, you can also be recommended. When you get to my groups, it will say, here's some groups we think you might be interested in, and it will recommend for you. And this is where you can find people that you can follow, those influencers that I talked about. There are so many ways to get insights from top industry leaders. For instance, I am super concerned about climate change. So I follow Bill Gates and I follow his live events that have to do with climate change. It's not because I think he's the only one who knows about climate change. I do know that he puts out organized quarterly reports on climate change and that he has a lot of factual information and resources to go to. So these are just a few of the people that you can follow. You'd be amazed how many people are on LinkedIn offering generous information and sharing with the community. And then lastly, but should be one of the first places you go to, is Tufts has a university page. That's more like a business page as opposed to a personal page. So there are two kinds of pages. There's the personal profile of individuals, but any company and any university can create a page as well. This is Tufts University page. If you click on alumni, you will find, in this case, I put the keyword search mechanical engineer, where those people live and where they work. As I mentioned, this was very helpful for my daughter who was studying the entertainment industry at Northwestern University when she first came back to Los Angeles to live and was looking for a job in the entertainment industry. She went on this page, found alums that were in the Los Angeles area, and set up coffee meetings and informational interviews with them. Super important for her. And guess what? Within 6 months, she landed a job in the entertainment industry. But she also increased her network by 3 times by just doing that kind of search on the alumni page of her university. So I'll let Elise talk a little bit about the resources you have at Tufts.
Thank you. Yes, and just to reiterate, that alumni tab is extremely helpful, and that is how I found the individuals that I reached out to at LinkedIn in order to get my position at LinkedIn. So if there's one thing you take away from this, I think it should be that, although hopefully there's more. So there is a Tufts Career Network group on LinkedIn. Highly suggest that you join that because you can be connected with people who are already working in the field that you are interested in getting into. We can do next slide. Great. And don't forget that the Career Center has tons of resources that are available. So schedule an appointment and check out resources. They're here to help, do mock interviews, help set you up with people that can, help you get your foot in the door. Really, really make use of the Career Center. And you guys are all taking a really good step today by joining this conversation. You can also sign up for career advising as an alum. So you can schedule an appointment, and then available through the HERD is a flash mentoring program. Great. So as I mentioned again, I reached out to a bunch of people that I did not know, but that I had something in common with where we went to school. And here's an example of how you can set up and ask for an informational interview, which is a surefire way to grow your network and get connected to others who share your interests and hopefully have them become mentors or advocates on your behalf. So here are 2 samples of connecting by direct messaging on LinkedIn via what we call a process called in-mailing somebody. So one's tied to interest in a company and one is tied to a meeting and an appointment for an informational interview. I highly suggest when you connect with someone, you are offered the option to include a message. And you should include a message, make it personalized. This is also a social media platform and a social experience. And the more, again, that you can provide someone with context as to how they can be helpful to you and why you would like to add them to your network and become a part of theirs, will ultimately lead to you being more successful and finding an opportunity faster.
Other than the alumni page, I would say this is the second most important thing, is that you actually directly reach out to people and start forming relationships. I just did a school to work course at Otis Art Institute. Those students who did this, almost all of them landed a summer internship. Didn't directly come out of the first round of informational interviews, but through references and showing off their portfolio and better understanding the job and what the skills they needed to be promoting on their LinkedIn profile, they were able to land those internships.
Sorry, Laurie, were you going to speak to this one, or would you like me to?
I was going to let you do this one.
Okay.
It's basically a summary of what we've been talking about all morning.
Yeah, sorry, I don't see that one here on my version.
Oh, really? Okay, well, I can do it then.
Yeah.
If I was going to tell you what to do, get that resume, cover letter, and LinkedIn profile ready to go. Do those, prepare to interview virtually. We have a place on LinkedIn that's free that you can practice the top 20 interview questions. Make sure that your top skills are listed. Search for jobs by hybrid, on-site, and remote. And you can search by jobs for interns, contract, part-time, full-time. Make sure that you put that all there, and you can create alerts, be creative, be willing to apply for sectors that are ramping to hire. You know, lots of people say to me, I was working with a mechanical engineering student the other day, and he said, I want a job with Google. And I said, but what about these new companies that are doing aerospace? I got him to actually see that there were 4 or 5 other industries, in the health industry, in aerospace, in logistics, where a mechanical engineer would have opportunity, that he was only looking in one vertical at that time. Check out your local businesses. They are often overwhelmed and they need help and expertise right now. When I walk around my neighborhood, there's a company I walk by where I don't see work for hire in the window. Keep applying. It isn't easy to get an internship. One of my students at USC applied for 80 internship positions to land 1 last summer. You have to stay on this. It's there are a lot of jobs out there, but it's also a very competitive market. Always think about doing part-time gigs, being more of a self-starter, starting your own business. I did contract work and part-time gigs the whole time I was going to school. And then reflect and review as many times as you can. So I'm going to go back into skills because it's so important. So many college students think that the transcript is going to tell everybody everything about them. But the transcript is what? A list of course titles. What you see in this job description on the right is a list of skills. And we are moving towards a skills-based hiring trend. More and more, this is what you'll see. And you'll see that there's 3 buckets. There's that area of expertise, those interpersonal skills, and then the third bucket is those technology skills. You need to have skills in each one of those buckets on your LinkedIn profile. More the better. More likely to show up in our taxonomy and keyword search, which works just like Google word search. So a list of topics, a list of skills. Keep that in mind. And then I wanted you to know we have plenty of articles and research and data on what the top skills are for 2021. As you can see, problem solving, critical thinking, and creativity. All skills that you get at Tufts, but they don't show up on your transcript. So they're skills you need to add to your profile under interpersonal. Be sure that you add those in there. These top 3 are super important. And then learn the most in-demand skills among employers. These are the 5 top soft skills: creativity, persuasion, collaboration, adaptability, and emotional intelligence. And if you put these on there and an interviewer asks you, what is the evidence? Make sure that you can honestly answer this. It doesn't help to bloat your profile and not have evidence or a story to back up what you're saying that you can do. And then just to let you know, these are the hard skills that we're seeing trending. There's always a lot going on in UX design. Blockchain is big, cloud computing are big, and Python is the technology that we see trending the most. I would make sure that you have these top skills, thinking about the future, jobs that we don't know the titles of, that Tufts doesn't know the titles of, that analytical thinking, innovation, complex problem solving, critical thinking and analysis, creativity are all on your LinkedIn profile. Notice they fall in different segments here: problem solving, self-management. Half of getting you a job is, are you going to be a likable person to work with 40 to 60 hours a week? If you're not likable, you're not going to get hired. So showing that you have good people skills is super important. And then finally, we always have to keep our technology up. When I ask somebody at a tech company, what should I tell my students? He says, tell them to learn what I haven't learned. Tell them to learn the future trending skills in technology, where we all need their expertise and knowledge. So ask yourself, I'm gonna let, sorry, it's gonna run right on to Elise. Elise, this is up to you. You close us out today.
No problem. So ask yourself, what can I do today? And how can I, through evidence, demonstrate my intelligence, connections, creativity, innovation, and resourcefulness? Evidence might be special projects, research, collaborations, certificates, degrees, an entrepreneurial startup with friends. It's a variety of things. And then explore jobs that you may not have considered. Careers are definitely not straight lines from A to Z. I'm working in tech and I thought I was going to end up being a doctor. So as you can imagine, like, it can have very transformational experiences and end up in a field that's perfect for you, and be flexible. So what are your next steps? Obviously, 1, be flexible, lean on your career center, focus on gaining new skills, and give yourself time to strategize. You'll also want to apply within 20 minutes of a job notification. So turn on notifications on LinkedIn so that you are made aware when jobs in your area become available, and you are 4 times more likely to hear back. You're 9% more likely to get hired if you've added a LinkedIn Learning certificate to your profile. And you're 4 times more likely to get a job at a company where you have had prior or current connections. So for example, I got my job at LinkedIn through my connections of people at Tufts who had gone there. So just to recap, and I'll try to go through this quickly because I know we want to have time for Q&A. Personalize, specialize, get visual, get creative, optimize, showcase, get social, join communities and groups, post, and post again, and boost your profile's presence.
So now we're going to open it up.
Yeah,
we're going to open it up to Q&A. But before I take off the screen, the slideshow, I just wanted to let you know that all the resources that we've referred to today are available in the slide deck, which Susan's going to be sending out to you. So don't worry. And that most of the courses and things that we've talked about are going to be, these courses right now are available for free during the pandemic. And just to let you know that they're all available to you. So Susan, I'll let you lead us through some of the questions now.
Yeah, we had a huge number of questions come in actually throughout. I do want to get to the first one that came in early on. So I will bring that up. First, I did want to say, in terms of making appointments with the alumni career services folks, I'm going to post a link in the chat. So folks who are alumni and want to connect with the right folks to get the support following the session, you'll see that go up in the chat box. The first question was, what's the difference between the summary versus the about section in LinkedIn? What's the differences between those two?
Yeah, so I'm happy to speak to this. They actually are quite similar, but under your summary, you're kind of putting a little bit of like an elevator pitch of who you are, what it is that you have to offer, what you're interested in. Your broader about section, you can put your resume as an attachment, you can provide examples of your work, and kind of just give a larger, more holistic picture of who you are as an individual, but they do serve somewhat similar purposes.
Yeah, I think of the summary as your story. You remember who you are, what you do, what you hope to be, those 3 things. And the about is a good place to use those use that visual stuff, put all the visual stuff in there, all those links to your resume and your websites and portfolio projects.
And what's the difference between kind of a personal versus a business profile? You know, what's the advantage of one over the other?
Yeah. So your personal profile is your online professional presence, but obviously you may also be a business owner or an entrepreneur. And so you can create and claim a page for your business. Oftentimes businesses are using their pages to promote their services, to hire individuals, possibly to provide testimonial from, happy customers. I would say a best practice would be to keep both of your pages active. Right. So as an individual, you're promoting your business through status updates and through articles you're sharing and through examples of your work. And then more broadly as a business, you might use that to your business page to actually do customer acquisition or hire people who want to work at your organization.
Unless you have a real business that you're doing, I wouldn't suggest at this time to go for the business page. I mean, Target has one. Google has one, Facebook has one, lots of small businesses have one. But if you're a freelance designer, work on your personal profile before you start setting up a freelance page. Chances of people finding that freelance page is very small, but finding you a great designer who posts beautiful work every day, very likely. So work on that personal profile if you're doing what I call part-time gig work.
And in the same way that you can turn on the feature to say you're open to work, you can also turn on a feature that you are offering services, and you can say specifically what those are, and you can do that from your personal profile.
Great. What about, I guess, can you edit your LinkedIn page and have it not be seen while it's a work in progress? And how do you delete kind of an old profile that might be attached to an old email? So how do you get rid of one entirely? Or a couple questions that came up.
I can address that. A lot of people set up two different emails when they set up LinkedIn profiles. I would suggest combining them into one. You can edit it anytime at all. There's no deleting it completely. So what I would suggest is you go in and update it. And if you've got two separate ones, combine them under one. And there is a tutorial on how to do that. If you say combine two LinkedIn profiles or combine emails, there's a little step-by-step on how to do that.
You can find that literally just by Googling.
Yeah, exactly. It'll pop right up.
And a few questions that came up about, how far back do you go in terms of your experience, right? You want to make sure that the information is current and relevant to the industry you're in, or can you have different things on your profile from across different paths of careers? Just kind of seeing how old is too old for your profile.
So as I said, I was mentoring a mechanical engineering student who didn't have any current work experience during college, but he had had a number of capstone projects and things like that. In talking to him, I said, "What have you had any work or outside organizational work?" Well, he had actually led an Eagle Scout troop. I said, "Put that up there." During high school. Now I realized that was high school, but what did it show? It showed that he had initiative, that he was a leader, and that he could work in teams. And I wanted to have something that could demonstrate his interpersonal skills that was not available. He had, software skills up the wazoo, but nothing that demonstrated his interpersonal skills. So you have to kind of pick and choose. He had also played on teams, and he had been a professional sport player during high school on club sports. I told him to put that on there as well. Again, to a recruiter, club sports shows that you have teams, you have ethics, that you work well with others, things like that. However, babysitting would not be something I'd recommend. So you have to kind of take it case by case, but I don't recommend college students go before high school, and I don't recommend they put down everything they ever did in high school, just the ones that would beef up those skills that they've listed.
Mm-hmm. That's great. And what about, I guess, in terms of, people are trying to avoid kind of bias around age, right? If you have a litany of things that go all the way back to a certain point in time. So how do you, what's your kind of balance, right? In terms of reflecting what your current age is, and not having bias kind of impact you with your profile potentially.
Well, I'm the old one here. I guess I'll take that question. I'm turning 70 in March. I tend to put what I've done for the last 10 years. I try to make it current back. Before 10 years, I used to know how to do Microsoft Director. That software doesn't even exist. Half the skills I have I've deprecated. They're gone. They're not useful. So I think people want to see current work things that are relevant to what you're doing now.
Mhm. And what about posting? What are some of the ways that you think it's helpful to have your posts be seen? Are there certain advantages or certain parts of LinkedIn to take advantage of so that your posts are seen more broadly?
So you can post obviously in the news feed for your connections to see. You can also post in groups so that you can get in front of targeted audiences. And quite honestly, something I have done before is I've posted a status update, taken the link from it, and shared it with family and friends and said, hey, do you mind reading this, liking it? And by them reading and liking it and kind of taking those viral actions, that helps boost it onto other people's news feeds as well. So you can do something as simple as ask your friends to like the post.
Just another comment. When I first started working for LinkedIn, coming from lynda.com, I didn't really have a lot of connections. And so one of the things I decided I would focus on education and higher ed, those topics. So when I found great posts by other people in higher ed, I would reshare those posts. But when I reshare those posts, I always make a comment of what I got out of that article or why it mattered to me. And in 5 years, I went from 200 to almost 4,000. And that's another thing I want to say. You don't need, this is not social media. You know, in my world where there's only 6,000 colleges in the United States, having 4,000 C-level people follow me in higher ed is exactly my target audience. I don't need everybody in the United States to be a connection with me. I need that targeted group that matters to what I'm doing professionally.
And what about non-traditional fields like performance artists, freelancers, coaches? You know, what's kind of your guidance on non-traditional paths and how to leverage LinkedIn to highlight those areas?
So I think
you go, and then I'll follow.
Yeah, I was going to say, you know, we're a place where everybody should feel free showcasing their work and looking for opportunity. And certainly as a creative, there are going to be people that it's worthwhile for you to connect with and work with. I think this goes back to speaking with an authentic voice, right? Like share examples of your work, share examples of what you've been involved with, and share that with people who would be beneficial to connect to your network. I don't necessarily think that LinkedIn is a place that is just for one type of professional. You will find your community.
Absolutely true. And this goes back to using those abilities to add featured images, videos, and things. So for instance, I have a student I'm working with who's a motion graphics designer. She had only static images. I said, put up a video to show your animation. You have a beautiful animation reel. Put that up there. She said, well, it's on da-da-da. I said, put it on YouTube. Put a safe, short, 1 to 3 minute video of animation on, and you know what? She got, you know, she's getting an internship. She's winning scholarship. She's winning. Oh, there's a lot of contests and competitions that get announced on LinkedIn. Right now, there's different organizations saying we're doing a climate change challenge. We're doing a da-da-da. And the last thing, I showed you 3 slides that said creativity and innovation and problem solvings are necessary. And in those fields that Susan just named, creativity, innovation, and problem solving are key to being able to do those. So put that up there. You're in the right place. Creativity is a hard one to show evidence of. And I think that people in these more creative fields have a you know, thumbs up. They can do that really easily.
And pictures and video are actually highest engaged with on our platform and on social media in general. So it's only to your benefit to be sharing those examples. They're going to get the clicks and they're going to get the likes. You
also can do just what Susan did, set up your own Zoom live session with 3 people and an interview. One of my students at Otis took the initiative to interview 3 women of color in animation. It was really helpful. It was something that was missing out there in Southern California. It was well attended by over 200 people locally in California. I think these are, you know, when you see something missing out there, or you see that you're not being identified, or you don't see your role being represented, you can do something to change that.
Exactly.
And what about gaps? You know, we talk about that a lot in resumes. How do we address gaps? What would you recommend in terms of LinkedIn? It isn't a direct correlation from the resume to LinkedIn, but obviously the content and the information is very similar. You know, how do you address that in the LinkedIn environment?
Well, one good new feature is that women who take off time to be with their children, there is now, I think it's called Mother at Work, or maybe you know what it's called, Elisa. I mean, there's ways now to talk about your definite things. it's always okay to say you took a sabbatical. There's nothing wrong. There's no negative connotation with a sabbatical. A sabbatical, in my mind, could be a trip to Europe for 6 months. A sabbatical could be taking on a new, a second special topic that you want to learn about and research and do and see if you have any affinity for it. You can use the word sabbatical easily, and you can just say sabbatical project, did this during that time. If there's an illness or something like that, I think you can disclose that thing if you feel comfortable with it. But I don't think on our platform, we've made it pretty easy to be honest about what you're doing at any point in your life, including writing Mother at Work.
And what about, I guess, in terms of accepting contacts outside your network? I know both of you have different approaches to that. I have a different approach to that. What's kind of your recommendation about accepting contacts from folks that you don't know or, you know, haven't met before in person? What's kind of your rule of thumb there?
I used
let
to
Elisa
wholesale.
go.
Yeah, I used to accept everybody. And I think especially, you know, I was younger, I was a student. That affects your LinkedIn experience. What you see on your news feed and what you get out of the platform is largely impacted by who you're connecting with and which companies you choose to follow. So I think it's a personal choice. For me, as I mentioned, any of you are welcome to connect with me after this. I just ask that you include in the message, hey, I attended the LinkedIn session that the Career Center put on, and I'd love to have you in my network, or I have a follow-up question, or whatever it is, so that I have an understanding of why you'd like to be a part of my network, and it makes sense for me to add you to my network.
I agree. I used to do blind acceptance. I don't do blind acceptance. I need to know. I look to see if there's another I look to see if you know other people in my network, if you're related to them. And I look to see if you've given me a reason why the connection would matter. I do a lot of public speaking, so you can imagine I get a lot of students following me. I often speaking in front of 500 students at a time. I really don't mind. And I post a lot of jobs that are open. I mean, if you follow me, guys, I post jobs. I posted 5 this morning before I got ready to do this webinar. I'm always posting jobs because people are referring jobs to me in these top fields that we just saw up there. So you can follow someone and you can connect with them. That's another thing. If you can't connect with someone, then follow them. That's almost as good. Not everyone, Bill Gates is not letting me do InMail with him, but I follow Bill Gates.
I feel like we have one last question that was asked that I hope to get to, is just how much experience do you list, under your each work experience, beyond the title and the dates? What's kind of your recommendation of the right amount of information that should be under those experiences?
It shouldn't be incredibly long, but it will depend on what the experience is, right? Like if you're a writer, perhaps you're going to write a little bit more than somebody who is in sales or something like that. But 3 to 6 to 7 sentences that explain what you did, what you were responsible for, maybe how you improved upon a process, but a short paragraph.
My only thing there is if you can tie it to the reward. For instance, if you had this role, what impact did it have that benefited you and the company? So, in this role of being a higher education advisor, I was able to work on a white space report that in fact increased our accessibility of community colleges having access to the LinkedIn Learning Library. I'm very proud of that. It was a win for us financially, but it was also a win for public education and community colleges that more people who are working learners have access to the LinkedIn Learning Library. Those are the kinds of things you want to write, what your role did and what its impact or value was.
Great. Well, I think we powered through a good number of questions that came in, which is great. You guys did amazing. I want to thank both Lori and Elise for coming today. It's great to have you both with your expertise from LinkedIn, which is phenomenal, and obviously a former Jumbo and an alumni. So it's great to have your experience to share. As I mentioned before, this recording will be put on our Career Center YouTube channel and also be sent out to all the folks who joined us today, as well as the handouts that you so generously created for us. So we thank you so much. And as I said, I will put for our alumni who want to set up a follow-up meeting with advisors for their relevant schools and connecting with their career advisors, I'm putting that link back in the chat so that you can have a follow-up with the correct advisor from your Tufts school. So thank you both again coming today. Yes, what were you going to say, Lori? Mm-hmm.
I just want to say one thing. It's one of my personal projects during COVID. If you have a LinkedIn profile and you want me to look at it, I will, but please don't ask me to look at it until after you've done your makeover. You've gotten all the tools that you need today from Elise and me, and I'm more than willing to give you feedback after the makeover. So just remember that. I haven't said no to one student yet. I'll keep my promise on this. It's my pro bono, my do good to do well mission here.
Well, that's a very generous offer, and I think you may get more people taking you up on that. So thank you for that. Well, I hope everyone has a great day, and thank you again for taking the time and sharing your expertise. So have a great day, everyone.
Thank you guys so much.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.